I'm going to call this From Chaos to Peace. As a heavy drinker and later an alcoholic, which I am, I never had peace. Even when I was socially drunk, I always felt a little bit tied to the pub, tied to alcohol, under pressure to drink socially, that sort of thing. And my life became more chaotic as time went on. So you're obviously abusing this substance as poison, aren't you? Now, as I've said before, I started like a lot of people, drinking at mid-teens, dabbling a bit. Drank my father's home brew, that sort of thing. And went on from there, social drinker, joined the police service, ended up in central London where my drinking increased. Not because of the stress of any job or anything, just because of availability, and I like drinking. You know, if you tell somebody, you say, why do you drink? Well, you drink because of different reasons. Mainly it's to have a good time, isn't it? It, you know, lowers your inhibitions, you feel more able to talk to people, party atmosphere, that sort of thing. Not many people didn't drink. It was quite unusual then, going back for 40 years, that people didn't drink socially. It still is. Most people have a drink, don't they? Most occasions are celebrated with a drink. But as I got a little bit older, in my maybe early 30s, then I had family started, had a daughter then. Marriage wasn't particularly stable, but that's another story. But my life became a bit more chaotic. What I mean by that is I couldn't focus really on my work 100%. I couldn't focus on my family 100%. And there was never any peace. I was sort of working long hours, working shifts, tired, travelling long distances, as we all do. Everyone works, doesn't they? Or most people do, if they want to be a success. But success becomes less of a success as you drink more, and you become a failure in the end. Not always a failure, but your ambition is stymied a bit, and you just feel, well, I don't feel as energized anymore. As it got on in time, I drank a little bit more, and I started relying on it really. You know, it became more of an addiction years later. Then I got divorced, I ended up living on my own, and everything was chaotic then because finances were different, my health was suffering. I just remember going to do, not binges, but steady drinking. Something would go out of control, and I'd drink for 24 hours straight and forget which day it was and all this. So I used to bring up my parents and my sister at the time. No longer speaks to me, but that's another story. What day is it? People used to think I was going mad, and maybe I was going mad. And I didn't want to speak to anybody particularly. I used to go to the off license, you know, the shops to get drinks, get supplies and such like. I didn't want to open any envelopes, any mail. I didn't want to really speak to anybody. I became very insular, very lonely. And all of this, I would call it chaos, in my mind started to erupt, and I became extremely anxious. And I couldn't travel on public transport. I managed to get a taxi down to the pub and get my supplies, that sort of thing, now and again. But my life was just out of control, really. It was just constant drinking. I couldn't get anybody in to fix or repair things in my flat. I had no TV. The heating went off, couldn't get anybody in there, ended up with rats, all this sort of thing. So when I mean chaos, is even when you're working and you're a bit younger, your whole life becomes out of control because you can't handle ordinary things like you can when you're sober. For the last 5 years, the first two, 2019 and 2021, I was in hospital mainly. I would say the last 2.5 to 3 years, my life's been at peace, and I've had a much better life. I feel back to myself again. Then this is what you get when you get sober, especially if you get the sober confident. Because I was off for 8 years, but I never knew if I'd go back. I never knew if I'd relapse, and I did relapse, unfortunately, in 2014. I'm 99% sure that I won't relapse because I have no reason to. And I know that if I do relapse, I'll be dead. It's as simple as that. So when your life is starting to spiral out of control, you'll know what's happening, because you'll know that you're drinking too much, and you know you're not performing to your highest level. And when that happens, things start to self-destruct in a way. You find yourself not working as well. You find yourself arguing with your partner. You'll not be as attentive to anything in the house. You maybe don't fix the car, get things repaired. You're too tired. That was my problem, was just completely whacked all the time. from then you'll watch finances just disappear. You spend more on drink than you used to, or you'll have to have a supply. I used to go on holiday. I actually once went on holiday where we drove down to Northern Italy. I had to have two cases of Stella in the back of the car because I needed a drink. My wife had to drive most of the way. I don't know if she put up with me in the end, to be honest, because all I was doing was drinking. I had a young daughter then as well, so irresponsible. I didn't drink and drive, so the pressure for driving was on her. Then I would be worried about getting the campsite, we would get lost, and everything was blown out of proportion. And parents would be on at me all the time. Why are you drinking so much? Why haven't you rang? Why haven't you done this? Why didn't you come over? I didn't feel like doing anything else really than just drinking and having a good time. I used to get on holiday and drink more. The experiences I've got, there's thousands of them I could go through, but nothing's stable when you drink. But I found nothing was stable in my life. I felt very ill at ease with things. I said the anxiety was, through the roof really. I used to worry about people. Gone from a very confident young man to being a middle-aged man who was like a shadow of his former self, really. I didn't know how to deal with people. I'd never experienced anything like that in my life, and it came up quite quickly. When I think about it, the mental health side of things was like a bit of a train crash, really, because it didn't seem to build up. I went from being really vivacious and chatty and all that sort of thing to being very insular. It took my whole personality away. And then, because you can't deal with things, that's when the chaos starts. So the bills start coming through, the bailiffs start arriving, all this sort of thing. And then obviously when you're single, looking after yourself properly, I didn't eat properly. I lost a lot of weight. I had nobody to advise me in a way. You need a good partnership, don't you, really, in life? I wouldn't like to be on my own now. I'm not, thankfully, but I've got the best partner in the world now. And it's good to have some support. You lose your support network when you're a drinker. From going from having a few drinks to being social and enjoying yourself, you then become, you become sort of vague person in people's lives, and you just pop up now and again. I didn't go to any social events. I was in family events. I was too embarrassed, and you could tell. I got paranoid, but I could tell people knew I was drinking too much, because I can spot drinkers a mile off now, because they're nervous or a little bit edgy. First thing I do is run to the bar, and when I did visit anybody, I had to have a lot of supply with me. And because I didn't experience of wine, I used to have cans of beer and bottles of beer. So I carry, obviously, bottle openers and all my key rings, all this sort of thing. And I always had a really heavy bag, which I had to carry myself. It was a ton weight with drinks. Then when I stayed with my parents, I used to sneak down to the garage and get some drink over there. It was a full-time job. And this chaotic lifestyle went on for years until, in the end, I became housebound in a way, I suppose. And that's when I had the rats and I couldn't let anybody in the flat, and mental health suffered, and I had physical problems. I was so weak, I had lost muscle mass. I was very deconditioned. I hadn't washed or shaved properly. I had no hot water. Nothing in life. All I had was a radio and a couple of little tunes on an old iPad. That was it. What a life. So I'm being a successful police officer in London with two properties. I ended up in a small dingy flat which had nothing. So from then I managed to build myself up, and only because of hospital, really. If I hadn't gone to hospital in October 2019, then I certainly wouldn't be here, because I had so many different problems with alcohol. So your life would be chaos and drink. It's as simple as that. And I'll only say this, I've said it 1,000 times before, to me, self-help groups, all this sort of thing, isn't really good. You need medical intervention, you need a strong mind, you need a strong desire and a very strong incentive to quit drinking. You can't just say, I'm going to stop on Thursday and then restart on Saturday. That's no good. You've got to have a plan of action, and you've got to, this is my life now. This is the way I'm going to head. I'm going to go out left, keep drinking, because that's the easy option. Or you're going to go right and stop drinking and get on with your life, and that's the hard option. Because most people relapse, and you need to get in touch with people like myself or others on YouTube who've been through these experiences, will help you to not relapse and try and get your life on track and get some peace back in your life. Because believe you me, peace is wonderful. It's priceless, in fact. From chaos to peace, that's the message. If you benefit from the channel, then please subscribe and share it. I've got an ebook out now, which I've compiled basically to help people get sober, and more importantly, stay sober. The link's in the description. £25.99. It's worth a read. It's a good little handy handbook, really, to have. And as I said before, any comments, drop me a line. There's lots of people on. We've got nearly 10,000 subscribers now. Lots of people with vast experience of alcohol and withdrawal and relapse and hospitals and doctors and diet and all that sort of thing. There's a lot of people on there who are willing to help. So get in touch with them as well. And have a great day.